For Telesur, I'm Cody Weddle in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with breaking news on the investigation into the 43 missing students in Mexico. As we come on the air this evening, Argentinian investigators announced the remains found in plastic bags in Mexico do not coincide with the DNA of the 43 missing students. Now, last week, Mexico's Attorney General claimed on live television that remains found in the Guerrero state were most likely linked to the 43 missing students. However, a forensics team out of Argentina has announced this evening that the DNA does not correspond with the remains uncovered by Mexican police. The relatives of the missing youth sought out the help from the Argentinian group following the Attorney General's announcement. They claim the investigation carried out by the Mexican authorities is unreliable. With reactions from Mexico, we now go to Clayton Kahn, who is joining us live from the phone, live over the phone. Clayton, thanks for joining us. You heard our opening report there. What else can you add at this moment to this developing situation, this surprise that these remains do not belong to the students?
Well, that's correct, Cody. According to the information, like you said, the independent Argentine forensic team investigating on behalf of the families of those 43 disappeared Ayotzinapa students have released a communique declaring that the remains of the almost dozens of bodies found in 3 different sites of clandestine graves, 2 outside of Iguala, Guerrero, where the attack occurred on the September 26th, and in one in a garbage dump outside of the nearby town of Cocula. Those remains do not pertain to the missing students. The world-renowned forensics team said that the DNA does not match the DNA of those students. Like you said, this is a major contrast to last Friday's announcement by Mexico's Attorney General Jesus Murillo Caram, who kind of coldly announced that the 3 organized crime members detained in relation to the case confessed to a mass murder of the students, burning their bodies and dumping the ashes into a river. So, like as you had mentioned, the families here of those missing 43 students distrust deeply the investigation by the authorities, and it's placed a lot of their weight in waiting for the reaction of this Argentine forensic team.
So they were hopeful of this investigation by the Argentinians. So how big of a tragedy is this for them? How big of a surprise is this for them that these remains do not actually belong to their loved ones? Clayton.
Well, I don't think it's much of a tragedy. I think most of the family members here are declaring in their protests and their announcements in their meetings with public officials that they want their children returned alive. And they believe deeply that their children, these 43 disappeared Ayotzinapa students, are alive. And I think the announcement by the forensics team, the Argentine forensics team, is only going to purvey or maintain that sentiment that their children still could be found alive. Cody.
All right, Clayton, so that hope remains that they will find those students alive. Thanks again to Clayton Kahn joining us live from Mexico tonight. Now, despite sparking outrage by saying he had had enough of a press conference offering information on the case, Mexico's Attorney General Jesus Murillo was unrepentant on national television Monday. Last week, Murillo tried to cut short a news conference saying, quote, "I've had enough." His words quickly went viral and protesters painted the phrase on his office doors, but a defiant Murillo expressed no regret over the gaffe.
Naturally, I don't need to lie. I'm as human as anybody, and I also get tired. I have been sleeping for 4 hours for the past 30 days, and on that day, I hadn't slept for 40. I had also traveled from Chilpancingo, and the truth is when you listen to them, it affects you when faced with helplessness of not being able to give them an immediate truth.
And we move on to other news out of Latin America. In Colombia, the Marcha Patriótica, a progressive grouping of social and political groups, has announced its intention to field candidates in the 2015 regional elections. Here's our correspondent Charles Parkinson reporting on the decision's significance.
construcción de un frente amplio y popular.
In a press conference in Bogotá, ex-Senator Piedad Córdoba officially announced the intention of the Marcha Patriótica, a grouping of progressive social and political organisations, to field candidates in regional elections at the end of 2015. The announcement comes amid widespread threats against activists and human rights defenders who support Colombia's peace process, including against Córdoba herself.
I want to say that whatever happens, if they come to kill us, the biggest request, the biggest call, the biggest clamour is that the peace process cannot stop. It must go on.
Since its inception in 2011, the Marcha Patriótica has been stigmatised by conservatives and persecuted by right-wing extremists. More than 70 members have been murdered, while scores of leaders have been jailed and threats against members continue to be issued.
Obviously, we demand from the state the warranties needed to participate in this electoral process, because evidently we are very realistic and we know that the threats and all of the attacks against us are going to increase.
The government's success in protecting the Marcha Patriótica from extreme right-wing elements will be a litmus test for its ability to guarantee the political participation it has promised to the FARC during peace negotiations. The violations against the Marcha Patriótica serve as an important reminder that the persecution of Colombia's progressive political forces is not a relic of the past, but an ongoing threat to stability that must be addressed in order for peace to be established. Charles Parkinson, Telesur in Bogotá, Colombia.
And thanks to Charles. And in Argentina, the Argentine authorities have carried out raids on banks and currency exchanges suspected of money laundering. The large-scale operation was launched after the government discovered inconsistencies in tax returns. The tax authorities searched 71 financial institutions, including the Banco Mariva, Transcambio, and Banco Colombia. For years, financial institutions and consumers have taken advantage of the black market peso after a restriction on buying U.S. dollars. And now we go to Honduras. That's where military forces are trying to expel a Garumpa community to make way for profitable tourism.
The Garifuna community of Barra Vieja has presented today in Tegucigalpa a detailed report of the situation that they are experiencing. In the last 3 months, there have been 2 attempts of the military forces to expel them from their communities to give place for a multimillionaire touristic complex in which 2 former presidents of Honduras are the main actionists, Ricardo Maduro and Rafael Callejas. The Garifuna have claimed for their rights for the Honduran government, but the authorities have taken places in the sites of the touristic investors and have already started to expel other communities in the Tela Bay that for more than 300 years have been the property and home of the Garifunas. Gerardo Torres, Telesur, Central America.
And thanks to Gerardo, we go to Palestine now. While the mainstream media has focused on attacks targeting Israeli soldiers, the impact of the Israeli occupation of Palestine continues.
Palestinian Intifada is likely to start in the West Bank. This is how Palestinian officials in the Gaza Strip explained the rising tension between the Palestinians and Israeli forces around the West Bank. Palestinian youth organized social media pages calling on the Palestinians to uprise against the Israeli occupation. Pages were called It'an wa Id'as, which means in Arabic stab and run over. And while the international community is condemning these Palestinian attacks on Israeli soldiers and settlers, great support messages are being sent to the West Bank uprising Palestinians from their fellow Gazan brothers.
What is happening in the West Bank is due to the 66 years of Israeli occupation of Palestinian land. Their inhuman policies and attacks on Palestinians have caused the youth to stand up and attack back. And because the residents of the West Bank don't have weapons, they are using their own power, which is stabbing and running over their occupiers.
Yesterday, the Israeli media reported that a Palestinian attempted to run over bystanders near a bus stop outside the Jewish settlement of Alon Shavut, near Beit Lahem, but he got out of his car and stabbed 3 settlers, killing a woman. The victim was identified as 26-year-old Dalia Limukus. The Palestinian man was shot and critically wounded by a security guard after killing the Israeli woman, and police initially reported that the attacker had died. Meanwhile, in Gaza, Fatah Party decided to cancel a commemorating festival of the 10th anniversary of the death of PLO chairman and Fatah leader Yasser Arafat, due to the latest blasts in front of Fatah leaders' homes and tension felt on the ground in Gaza between the rival Hamas and Fatah. Nur Harazin, Telesur TV, Gaza.
And thanks to Noor. Moving on to Spain, the government has rejected calls from Catalonia's President Artur Mas to begin a dialogue discussing the region's independence. His proposal came after nearly 2 million Catalans voted in favor of breaking away from Spain in a non-binding referendum. The Spanish Deputy Prime Minister Soraya Sáenz de Santamaría says an agreement would be difficult. Earlier on Tuesday, Mas said he had written to Prime Minister Mariano Rajoy proposing to start a dialogue over an independence referendum. Mas says the Catalan elections in 2016 will be used as another proxy referendum. We end tonight not just on a lighter note, but on a sandy note. The world record for the largest sand castle ever built may have been broken in Rio de Janeiro. The castle is estimated to be 12 meters tall and only made from sand and water. Wow, look at that. Officials from the famous Guinness Book of World Records took the massive castle's measurements. The official results won't be known for at least a couple of days, but any little princesses or princesses hoping to make the beachside lair their new home will be disappointed. The palace will be demolished at the end of the day. Plenty more on those stories and others at our website, telesurtv.net/English. For Telesur English, I'm Cody Weddle. We'll see you right back here tomorrow.